Welcome to the Drum Shuffle, a podcast offering insights, perspectives, and conversations for drummers. I'm your host, Jamie Eads. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Drum Shuffle. Jamie Eads joining you as always. This is episode number 20. Hope everybody's having a great week out there. We've got a fantastic show. My friend and just a super nice guy, Chad Gamble, is going to be joining us. Of course, Chad is with Jason Isbell in the 400 unit, just doing tons of great work out there. So we're going to be talking with Chad here in just a second, so please stay tuned. Los Cabos drumsticks may be the best kept secret from drummers today. Los Cabos Drumsticks makes the finest tools to touch a drummer's hands in the business. The best news, almost every popular stick size is available in both white hickory and red hickory. If you don't know what red hickory is, it's made from the heartwood of the hickory tree, unlike regular white hickory, which is made from sapwood. Red hickory drumsticks will hold up to even the hardest hitting drummers. Their durability comes from the density of the wood, but they do not sacrifice the feel. Please visit LosCabosDrumsticks.com to learn more about their products. And don't forget to ask at your favorite retailer for Los Cabos drumsticks. All right, guys and girls, as promised, we're going to be joined by the great Chad Gamble here in just a moment. I had the great fortune of meeting and hanging out with Chad a couple of times at Jason Isbell shows. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge Jason Isbell fan, been a huge fan of Chad's playing for a number of years. Chad is celebrating his 10th anniversary playing with Jason in the 400 unit. And of course, just picked up a Grammy, Chad did. Jason picked up a couple. The record prior to, a couple years back, another couple of Grammys. Jason's work just speaks for itself. A few years back, Americana Artist, Album, and Song of the Year. So critically acclaimed band. And Chad is truly just one of the nicest, kindest, and most genuine people you're going to find in the music business. I am proud to call him an acquaintance of mine. He's a buddy, and he took some time out of his busy schedule, had a couple of weeks off from the road, and took time to come on the Drum Shuffle. So let's welcome Chad Gamble to the show. Hey, good afternoon, Chad. How's it going, man?
Doing fine. How about yourself, Jamie?
Man, I cannot complain at all. Thanks so much for taking time. I know this is some well-deserved time off the road for you, and I just want to say this interview is long overdue. So thanks for finding the time to get on the show finally, brother.
I'm excited to do it, and I apologize for not being able to hook up with you before this, but yeah.
Well, awesome. I mean, you're busy. I mean, it's amazing. You know, I've caught several shows over the last few years, and, you know, Jason is just working you guys to death. I mean, we were talking, you guys are booked solid through, you know, the whole summer into the fall with hardly any time off. So that's good, right?
It's good. It's always good to be working. And, you know, there's always a silver lining at the end of actually, you know, about this point in every record cycle, you know, you can start to see some downtime coming to where you're primarily doing weekends, you know, and then fewer, or there's, you know, wider breaks in between being out and being home, you know. So you go from being on the road for 3 to 4 weeks at a time to being home for that amount of time, and you know, they kind of just flip-flop there towards the end of record cycle. So it's good. Yeah, well, and you know, I mean, you guys, and I want to talk about your record cycle, you know, as we get through the interview. But typically what we like to do is start at the very beginning. Now, of course, you know, a lot of our listeners will probably know that you were a part of the Gamble Brothers band with your brother Al.
So I want to start at the beginning. Did you grow up in a musical family? Were your parents musicians as well?
My grandmother on my father's side was not probably, but definitely the most musically inclined person in the family that we remember. She, very talented, played piano, had a beautiful voice, played ukulele, played dobro, played, and you almost name it. And she also was a dancer as well. She loved to dance, and she was always involved in these singing groups. Like, I don't know if you guys had this type of thing around in your towns or whatever, but it was called the Sweet Adelines, and it was mostly a cappella group. Sometimes they'd have piano accompaniment, but it was almost like a female barbershop quartet, basically, is what it was. And so a lot of it comes from that. Now, as far as my parents, my dad, knew some chords on the guitar, could blow the harmonica a little bit, but moreover, I think he was appreciative. He was musically so much so that, he almost would rather be a bystander and watch it happen and listen to it. And he always very supportive. Me and my brother had a great record collection. We would just, spend hours with, either together or individually. And then, so I guess my brother and I, you could say, it comes from our grandmother.
I gotcha.
Didn't skip a generation, but just kind of passed through, just kind of slightly. I don't know.
Sure. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, and kind of the same thing with me. I've got an older brother who was a college disc jockey. So, I kind of couldn't escape rock and roll because it was around,
Yeah.
So, those upbringings, it either gets in your blood or it doesn't, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Now, obviously, you're an Alabama native. Did you do, marching band and things like that in school, or was it more of a, just kind of a rock and roll, / Muscle Shoals soul music kind of upbringing that drew you into playing?
Well, it drew me into playing. It happened or the drawing me into playing, I should say, happened well before like high school and school band. But I was, yes, in marching band. I started in band in school when I was probably 7th grade, just playing snare. Played snare the whole way through pretty much, actually. And our town, small town in North Alabama, school probably had, I don't know, in my grade, there's maybe 105 kids. And so the band was not very big.
Gotcha.
Because there was a lot of athletes and, other activities. But, so, yeah, I got talked into getting into the band by the band teacher who had seen me play drums in other situations. In 6th grade or so, I got called up to the high school because there were some musicians that were actually my brother's age that were going to be playing and accompanying the chorus for a couple of numbers, and they didn't know anybody that played drums except for me, who was 5 years younger than them. And so I went and set my drums up and played some songs with them, and the band teacher saw that, or band director, I should say, saw that, and talked me into just giving it a shot, and I did, and threatened to quit, about every other year. And I don't even know why. I have no idea why I would do that, why I would threaten to quit. But, so yeah, I played in marching band and went through a couple of different directors. The last one that we had, who had to talk me back into coming in the band my junior year, was probably the one I got along the best with. And we, at the end of every summer, or at the end of every school year, I would be given a tape. So I wasn't the strongest reader, and I think the band director had too many other fires to put out with like woodwinds and brass and all that, you know. And so what they would do, and each one of them did this, though, they would give me a tape at the end of the school year of, here's the songs we're going to do on cassette. You figure out a good part for it and teach it to the rest of the drum line. So I would do that best I could, and it wasn't always great, and I would have to get help with it sometimes. But they put that trust in me, and that kind of helped me, you know, figure out that, hey, you know, they're giving me a bunch of outlets to learn some stuff kind of my own way. And B, you know, they're trusting me to be a leader, and you know, they must have some kind of faith in me. So I stuck with it. Again, not a strong reader. We would do well at competitions. And thankfully, they weren't reading note for note, judges. I mean, they weren't, you know, scoring me on how well we read. And I'm not taking credit for everything, but, you know, that was a lot to be put on a kid that age. You know, that's a lot of responsibility. So I'm proud of that. I didn't continue to do it through college. I went straight to the bar bands in college. So
sure. Well, and I'm sure that experience has carried, you know, into your life today. I mean, you know, and we'll talk about, you know, some of the grooves that you play. But you know, that experience of arranging for an entire drum line, I mean, that had to stick with you, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. It helped for sure to, you know, anytime you're given a demo or given, you know, an idea to play off of, it absolutely. It was very instrumental, shall we say, for you know, my formative years, you know. Well, for sure. Now, you said once you got to college age, you went straight to the bar bands. How soon around that time did you and your brother kind of start putting together the Gamble Brothers band? Well, so I'll back up just a little bit. So growing up, you know, I had a drum kit. My brother is a keyboard player, organ player, singer. And so we would gather in the basement at a young age and play along with some of Dad's records or something that we could just play by ourselves, or, you know, a tape or a record that we had. And then, you know, it's just the two of us. And so we would often get caught if Mom and Dad were entertaining people that, you know, they'd call us down and be like, hey, you need some entertainment, come, you know, yeah, how about some music, you know? And so, you know, being told to go play something is kind of, it's always struck a nerve with us, you know. I'll tell you when I'm ready to play, you know, that type thing. Sure. But, you know, it did. It got us, that helped, you know, kind of fuel the entertaining part of it. And so, finally, you know, throughout high school for my brother, you know, he had some friends who picked up bass, picked up guitar. We'd have them over. We'd play in the basement for, you know, every day during the summer. Have Al's basement band down there, and playing, you know, all the hits, Leonard Skinner, Dire Straits, whatever, you know, whatever was awesome at that time. And cut through to high school for me, didn't have a whole lot of band stuff going on in that regard. I was in a Christian rock band for a little bit, did that. And then on into college, my brother and I both went to the University of Alabama. He's 5 years older than me. So luckily, he had been through the system already, kind of worked it, and that made it really easy for me to kind of get in there and find people to play with, because there were still people, you know, in town, even though he'd graduated and moved on. You know, there's a lot of people who are still there in town playing. So it helped
and this has kind of always been the case for me with him, is I kind of follow him around. So that helped. Out of college, I ended up getting a gig with a band out of Shreveport called the Bluebirds, a band in which my brother had played years prior. Got that gig, wrote that for a little while, and then I decided to move to Memphis, where my brother was, and try to do something with him. And so I moved to Memphis probably 97, something like that, 97, early 98. And try to, find a spot for myself on Beale Street. The first year wasn't that great. It wasn't that easy. I was finding gigs, but it wasn't anything with any kind of regularity. I wasn't, getting steady pay. I was still going to have to be working otherwise, so I sold shoes at a local department store, and kind of found a balance there for a year or two, being able to gig and hope to God that I had the afternoon shift at the shoe store every day, on a weekly basis. And so eventually, I got hired into a band that my brother was playing in, was part of, that worked house gigs up and down Beale Street, sometimes 2 different ones a night, 5 to 6 nights a week. And that's probably the second most formative part of my training. Just the players that I was playing with were so good, and it was just such a different world for me, because people would come and sit in, and not everybody's awesome, but a lot of times there's going to be awesome people coming and sitting in with you, and you learn how to adjust and adapt that way. And plus, you're playing to tourists a lot of the times, but it's you just got to be quick on your feet, and that was a huge deal for me. And then I don't know, after a couple of years of that, we started to kind of get worn down a little bit, and it was a lot of work, and it was good money, but you're having to work every night. And so we started to kind of get tired of that, and my brother and I decided, hey, let's give our own thing a shot. And so we used some of the house gig connections we had on Beale Street, like the Black Diamond and the Blue City Cafe and the BB's. Those people all knew us. They knew we were decent, at least. And, they gave us our first gigs as the Gamble Brothers Band. And, we aspired to get off of the street and get out, do some touring and stuff. And we were able to do that over time. Made 3 records probably in 6-7 years. And, that was, it was a good time, but that's how that kind of came together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, apparently you and I, we just have so many things in common. We just missed each other in Memphis. I was in Memphis in, 95 and 96, kind of doing the same thing, honestly, just any pickup gig that you could get at the Rum Boogie Cafe or Alfred's or, Silky O'Sullivan's.
Man, that's one of the first gigs I went for was Rum Boogie. I tried to get in James Govan's band. And, and he, and I went down and auditioned. I didn't do that great, and it was truthfully one of the first auditions I'd ever done. So I was a bucket of nerves, and, I wasn't doing stuff just right. But every year after that, as long as I was in Memphis, James would always make it a point to come see me play after he finished his shift. He'd always come up, and he'd be like, I just, you're so good now. He's like, I just got to say, you just weren't quite ready back then. So,
well,
but he's
such a kind soul. He is,
Oh, he was a sweetheart, man.
Yeah.
Such a sweetheart.
Well, I mean, and that was back in the days that Memphis, Beale Street especially, I mean, some of those places were still just seedy blues clubs. I mean, it wasn't, the tourist trap that it is today. I mean, there was no Hard Rock Cafe. It was, right. And it depended on which end of Beale Street you were on, what genre of music you were playing. It was like the further,
absolutely.
The closer you were to Riverside Drive, the more kind of traditional Delta blues you played, and the further down you got, the more rock and roll it got.
Right.
It was just such a crazy scene back in the mid '90s down there, and the record that that I discovered from the Gamble Brothers band was I think it was called Back to the Bottom, and I immediately said, wow, these guys have been listening to the Meters a little bit. I mean, it was kind of that cool mix of New Orleans and Memphis. It was, it was different than other things that were out at that time. And it was just absolutely awesome music. So was Zigaboo one of your big influences growing up, or did it just kind of happen that way?
No, absolutely. With as much knowledge as I had of him, I wouldn't say growing up, but once I was in, senior in high school, on in the college years and stuff like that, yes, absolutely. I wanted to be Zig. And I wanted to be, I was going to be in bands that were going to play Sissy Strut every night, probably open with it. So I wanted it to be as close as I could, get it as close as I could. And thank God there's probably not any tape of this, but, I can guarantee you that there is from the first time I played it, I was just I can't even say that word, bastardizing his drum licks, just shredding them, probably just disgusting, just playing it how, as thinking I was doing great, but just playing it like as simple as you possibly could, but just trying to throw that, that thing that's going to be in everything, which is not even close to what he's doing, but that's what you hear when you hear people covering it. It's nowhere close. If you really sit and listen, there's a lot going on there, but not a lot going on there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really hard guy
to... His kick foot, oh my God. And the cymbal, I mean, the hi-hat, he'll be playing a hi-hat rhythm. In that 2 and 4 period, you're going to hear it, it's going to splash some, and it's just every time. It's just amazing drummer. But yeah, that's kind of what we were going for, was a New Orleans meets Memphis vibe. I think that those exact words probably even came out a time or two in an article, or maybe in our own description of it. Our sax player that played with us was huge in helping us discover, how to bridge that, because he's just a consummate student of music, and he, knows more about drumming than I did, and could direct me and how to, and help me, figure parts out and stuff. So, yeah, there was definitely a shout out there.
Well, and it's good stuff. And to this day, I've been very fortunate to meet, most of the guys in the 400 unit. Other than Jason and Sadler, I've met all of you guys. And, at one of your shows, I was talking to Jimbo, and he kind of pointed at you and said, if you could steal anything from Chad, take his left foot. Because you do have,
because he doesn't want to hear it anymore. He wants somebody to actually steal it.
I don't believe that, but but you do have a lot of that stuff that goes on in your playing with Jason, which is really cool, and it adds this really, really unique, I think, kind of dynamic to the songs. And I hate to jump around so much here, but you've been playing with Jason now, I think, if not already, but definitely coming up on 10 years, right?
Yeah, the Memorial Day weekend was the 10th anniversary of my first fill-in gig with Jason. And that first gig was in Augusta, Georgia, and we just happened to be in Augusta, Georgia a couple of weekends ago that was kind of weird. And I didn't even realize it until my wife said something about it.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh my God, yeah, it is my 10th anniversary. And oh my God, we're in Augusta, Georgia. That's where as she says, that's when stuff is meant to be. So
yeah, for sure. Well, and I was a huge, and still am to a certain degree, I was a huge Drive-By Truckers fan. And, when Jason left that group and went out and started doing, his solo career, I tell people, I joke around all the time. I say, yeah, man, I was in on the ground floor. I had the first record, Sirens of the Ditch. And then, you came along right after that record. I think that first tour, he kind of just did kind of mostly solo acoustic kind of gigs, really. But you have been with Jason from the days of traveling around in a van, and playing, the bar circuit. So you've really been there for the entire climb of Jason's music. And, dare I say, he's kind of the king of Americana right now. And, I'm a huge fan of the music. Everybody that listens to this knows that, and I think his writing, I have said a million times, he's my generation's Bob Dylan. That's the way I view Jason's writing. It's just incredible music. And I've read in interviews that he doesn't really give you guys the songs before you go into the studio. It's like you guys are all learning it as you're doing the records. Is that just super pressure for you as a drummer, or is it, no, I this is fine, we're going to get something good, in 2 or 3 takes kind of thing?
Starting off, there was some pressure about that, but it was never said, hey, we're going to get this in 2 or 3 takes. It's just like, let's not have to think about it too much, so that's what happens. Yeah, we get in to the studio day one, and he'll break out the acoustic and run one down in front of us all, and we'll each go to our booth or whatever and start chopping away at it. And but there's not a lot of takes on any of them, I don't think, but only a few of them are probably first or second takes. But it's become how we do it, and everybody's comfortable with it now, I think. And I kind of take that philosophy when I'm doing other sessions, whenever possible. I'll not listen to what I'm supposed to be learning the night before or anything. I'll wait until I'm either on my way to the studio. If I see they're not going to, I feel like everybody's kind of the same way. Like, everybody could stand to listen to it at least one time. And I feel like that's usually going to happen in the studio. Hey, you want to listen to it one time before we try this, So either on my way to the studio or in the parking lot of the studio, 9 times out of 10, everybody's going to want to hear it at least one time before we try something, if it's possible, if it's on a demo. So I tend to just try to, get a good sleep at night and not have that rolling around in my head.
Yeah,
I've gotten more comfortable with it, is what I'm saying, I guess.
Yeah, I think you can overthink it, certainly, as a player.
Absolutely.
And then you go whiff at it, the next day in the studio, and you're like, I probably.
Yeah, why would you do that to yourself? You don't want to drive yourself crazy. I came up with these licks in my sleep last night, and this is going to be perfect for this song. And then you're going to spend, time trying to actually make it work. That doesn't interest me at all. I'd rather it'd be more organic. And thankfully, I play with people who can do that as well, and it's I don't know, it makes going in there a lot easier. Makes day one a lot easier just because there's no expectations. You don't know what's going to get thrown at you, so why worry about it?
Right. Right. Well, I'm really curious too, another guy that has, just kind of blown up in the past few years is of course your all's longtime producer, Dave Cobb, and now he's at the legendary, RCA studio in Nashville. What's it like working with Dave? I mean, I have a feeling it's probably pretty laid back and, let's just get, a good take and a good song kind of thing. But, I think where your all's career really kind of took a huge turn was with the Southeastern record, and
right.
That's when everything really started blowing up, so what was it like working with Dave? I mean, how does he approach recording the drums? Is he a guy that's like, okay, we threw some mics on him, Chad, go play him?
He, no, he's not quite that lackadaisical about it. He knows what he wants on the drums, and if he's, if he doesn't like what he's hearing, he'll switch mics out or whatever. He doesn't just live with it. He is a big proponent of, if nothing else, let's get the drum track,
right.
Drum and bass, please. Let's just get that, And so, he's not, he is laid back to a certain extent, but once you start recording a song, he doesn't want to lose any moment. He wants, so, if we'll run it one time, and if that wasn't it, he's like, yeah, let's while it's in your head, let's do this. It was feeling right, and we just need to, tighten it up here or there. So he, it goes from being laid back to like kind of super intense for just a minute, and then back to laid back again. He just wants to capture, he loves capturing the raw nucleus of everything, or the raw, I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but the raw sound, I guess, and the people not really thinking about it, but just playing to what they hear. So, he's great to work with. He really is. And we've been fortunate to have him on 3 records. And, if not for him on that Southeastern record, I don't know that we'd be in the same spot we are now. Of course, the songwriting had to be there, and it was there, but, who knows what would have happened if it had gone some other direction.
Yeah, well, for sure. Well, so when Southeastern first came out, of course, I was one of the first guys to run out and grab the record, just because I am a fan of Jason's music so much. I'm one of those guys that when I get a record, I'm going to listen to the whole thing right now. Mm-hmm. I don't just like skip and pick tracks. I listen to the record as a whole because that's why you put it out. Right.
Right.
So the first time I went through Southeastern, somebody asked me, well, what's it sound like? And I said, well, it's probably not a record you're going to put on at a party. I think that was my first reaction. And then after I spent a few days with it, I went, oh my God, this is it right here. This is gonna blow up. And, but it took me 2 or 3 times through that record to get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And, to this day, one of my favorite songs is Flying Over Water. I love that track. It's just everything about that song, I think, is just perfect. And your drum groove in that is awesome. It's just,
thanks.
But, it's kind of behind the beat. It's not in your face, but it just propels that song perfectly. So again, I think Southeastern was the record that really kind of turned the corner for you guys.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, that was supposed to go down, that whole record was supposed to go down a completely different avenue. We were told in 2012, summer of 2012, I think, that we had just put out the live record. And we were told that Jason's next thing was going to be a solo record. And we're like, oh, crap. And that Ryan Adams was going to produce it. And we're like, well, great. So we all got to go find work now. So, you know, and we toured up until the time he was going to record. But last minute, like, honest to God, a day or two out of recording, Ryan drops out for some reason. I don't even know the story behind that. And I think Dave's name got mentioned, and Dave was like, yeah, you know, we can. So it's going to be an acoustic record, right? And so Dave's like, oh, yeah. He's like, well, you know, let's listen and, you know, let me hear some of the tunes you got. And so thankfully Dave was like, yeah, you're probably going to want some players on this, you know, on at least most of it. And so I got a call from Jason like a day before they go in the studio, and he's like, hey, look, I know this wasn't going to happen. He's like, but there's been a big shakeup, and, you know, if you're available, you know, I'd love to have you up here. And that was the case for everybody. He called Derry, keyboard player. Jimbo, unfortunately, had accepted a gig out in Montana for like a few weeks. It was a few weeks long or something like that, and could not get out of it and could not get back in time because it was so last minute. And it just, you know, that breaks my heart to this day that he wasn't on it. But you know, thankfully, somebody was the voice of reason to make sure we had players on that record.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience. And the guy who played bass, you know, nothing against him, he did great. Brian Allen, I think is his name. And but anyway, it was definitely the turning point. And, you know, thank God. And I'll tell you what, the turning point that I knew as soon as he played it in the studio for us was Cover Me Up. And I knew I wasn't going to play on that song. But as soon as I heard that song, I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
This is it. Well, and, you know, lo and behold, the song itself probably didn't do much, but it's probably one of the most revered and what people want to hear, you know, when they come to a show.
Yeah, well, for sure. And, you know, I mean, the way you guys do that live is really cool. You know, it's still that tender acoustic ballad for, you know, 3/4 of the song. And then the rest of the band kind of comes out onto the stage, and you guys finish it as a band, which is, and is very dramatic, and it's cool. And I'm glad that you guys have arranged it that way live, so that the whole band is out there enjoying, you know, what is arguably, you know, a crowd favorite.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, it's a really cool moment in your all show. And, you know, I think the Southeastern record too, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, certainly, but I think your playing, you know, is a little bit different on Southeastern. You know, there's a lot of brush work and a lot of mallet work, which, you know, maybe we didn't hear so much of that on the prior records. Was that a challenge for you, or was it just, no, that's what this song needs, so that's what I'm going to do?
Well, it was kind of the latter there. That's what this needs, and that's what I'm going to do. The struggle with the brushwork up to that point is anytime I'd played brushwork on a record, it was going to be a train beat, you know, and that's something we always try to avoid. Sometimes there's just no getting around it. It's going to be kind of a train beat. But this was kind of the first brushwork that I'd done on a record that wasn't. I mean, that song she sang in the shower was kind of my first swirling brush recorded moment.
It was a pretty good one. I mean,
yeah, man, I thought I did great.
I think you did too. I mean, that
doesn't sound like a train at all.
And that song's really good too. You know, I mean, it's, but I mean, I saw a definite change in your playing on that record without a doubt.
Things swung a little bit more too on that record. Like, you know, it was, up to that point, I'd been at the mercy of, with the exception of Here We Rest to a certain extent, but up to that point, I'd kind of been at the mercy of what the sound had been before I joined the band, or what the drummers had played before I joined the band. You know, and that was a lot of songs still, you know, to be playing that previous drummers had recorded, and that was the part, and that's what you're going to have to play. But I felt like with Dave, you know, he encouraged, you know, let's get out of the dude rock, you know, thing a little bit, and, you know, just kind of play what feels natural to you. And I love to act like I can play jazz, and
you and me both, brother.
So yeah, man. So, you know, songs like Stockholm, I was like, hell yeah, I'm going for it, man. Let's do this. Let's swing this mug, you know, and and I don't believe that was what was actually going to happen on that song originally. It was, I think it was slower and definitely more tame is what they had an idea for. But I got in there and kind of messed around with it a little bit, and, you know, I'm pretty proud of that one. That one felt good going down.
And it's a great song. And, you know, I've always wanted to ask the question. I've never had the opportunity to ask you this, but, you know, kind of coming out of that middle section, you kind of flip the beat around. It's almost like the rest of the band is kind of playing in, I don't know, maybe in 3, and you have to bring it back out to the 4.
You're right.
So was that just how the song was written, or was that something that you kind of did on purpose?
It's just kind of how it felt, you know, it's kind of how it was written, and it took me a second just to get my head around it, but it's not that difficult a part by any means, but it kind of does throw you there for a second. But yeah, that's how it was written.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, that whole record is fantastic. And I don't mean to spend so much time talking about it, but it was such an important record for the trajectory of the band, no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, now the record that you guys are out touring right now, and I want to say this, and I've given you so much grief through social media over the last couple of years, but man, the Nashville Sound, you finally got a couple of Grammys sitting on your shelf, well deserved, and congratulations, Chad.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I actually have one Grammy, so but thank you very much. I've got,
okay. So
I'll explain how that works.
I guess when we were vampires, or if we were vampires, I guess there's no drums on that song, right?
Well, not only that, but it was the Grammy for Best Song, so that goes to the songwriter.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Which, that was a question we had in our head up until the time, we're backstage at the
right.
at the Grammys but that's how that works. And then we, on the record previous to that, Something More Than Free, Jason won 2 Grammys for it, and that was billed as Jason Isbell, not and the 400 unit. So he has the 2 Grammys for that record, which was song and album. But we did get recognition certificates, that I have framed in my house right now. But anyway, yes, I do have a Grammy. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it. It's crazy.
Well, I will say this, one of the great honors of my life is, about a year or so ago, I became a voting member of the Grammys. And I smiled from ear to ear when I pressed that button to submit my ballot, voting for you guys.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, you and I are acquaintances, and I've followed you on social media, and we've talked, several times. But, one of the cool things was seeing, just the joy and the family atmosphere that the band had going to New York for the ceremony. I was just so happy for you guys. I really was. And,
Yeah, man, that was so awesome, man. And who deserves these trophies more than those of us who are married than our spouses, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. My wife, it's every bit as much hers as it is mine, and probably more so.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's just a certain amount of sacrifice that goes with being married to a musician, especially being married to one of us drummers. Man, God.
I mean, why would you do that? Why would you put yourself through that?
I don't know. I think it was Liberty DeVito I had on the show, and we decided that there should be like an Olympic sport for drummers' wives, and they should all just get the gold medal, So, I mean, I get it totally. But, the record that you guys are out there with right now, the Nashville Sound, I'm going to say it was another kind of, I'm not going to say it's completely different, but this record certainly has more of a rock undertone to it than the previous two. I think that's a fair statement. You can correct me if it's not, but some of the stuff like Cumberland Gap, Anxiety, and quite honestly, Anxiety is just, that drum track is phenomenal. I mean, it's just great. And I think you kind of got to do your Keith Moon on that, right?
If I have one, then yeah, that was I don't know that I have a Keith Moon in me, but yeah, that was it. They just said go nuts, and that was me kind of going nuts. So.
Well, I mean, it's just, it's just a fantastic record, and sonically, it's. I think it has more of a rock sound to it, and just a fantastically great record. And you guys, we mentioned it at the top of the interview. You guys are just touring like crazy. Now you're about to head to Europe here in the next week or so, right?
Yeah, here in a few days.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, so what are you seeing with the shows now? Primarily, you guys are touring as the headliner, and you're doing, medium-sized theaters, some shed shows, no doubt about it. And, I caught a show back in April down in Greenville, South Carolina, and it completely sold out, in like 5 minutes. And we've got some family down in Greenville, and my nephew actually works at the Peace Center. So I was able to say, get me tickets, when they go on sale. So we had really good seats, but it was completely packed, sold out. All of the shows are that way these days. I mean, I guess the question I'm trying to get to, Chad, is how different is it now with that level of success as to when you first joined the band and you guys were traveling around in a van? I mean, does it feel like vindication for you?
It does. But I'll say this. When I first started playing with Jason and playing in smaller bars, I was always amazed at the following that he already had. Even if the place only held 100 people, there was going to be 100 people there.
Right on.
And that's something I had not experienced yet in my career. Playing with my brother, it was just rolling the dice, and rolling to a new town and just hope to God somebody, showed up, and we had some fans, but nothing like this. And so that's always impressed me. And, not that there's not off nights. Yeah, there's going to be an off night when you play in, El Paso or somewhere like that. It's not necessarily our crowd, wholly our crowd. There's going to be people there, but primarily now, though, yeah, these theaters are packed out, and we still see growth. Our demographic has changed drastically. It used to be just all, portly gentlemen with beards and baseball hats. And now, there's actually females at the show. And hey, look, there's some older people there. There's younger people there. There's always kids at a show now, which I'm amazed at.
Yeah.
And God bless those parents, but also, put them suckers to bed. They got school the next morning, a lot of times. But yeah, it's always been an impressive thing to me, and thankfully it hasn't gone the other way yet. Hopefully it won't ever go the other way where the crowds start slipping. But yeah, it's a good time now, and it is. It's definitely an affirmation that we've all made the right choice ultimately, to be where we are and doing what we're doing, and it's paying off. So, yeah, it's a good feeling.
Well,
and also I'll add to that, my first trip over to Europe with them, however many, 8 years ago or so, I was like, man, why are we, who are we expecting to come? And sure enough, man, the same thing. He had a following already over there. So that's grown as well. And in Europe, Northern Europe, we do real well. Scandinavian countries love us, and so we're starting to, it's about, as far as crowd capacity goes, it's probably, I don't know, a year and a half behind what our U.S. is, meaning that, we're still growing and still, we're just now getting to 2,000, 2,500 seats in Europe. So, and then right now in the U.S. we're growing to between 3 and 5. So, it's, you can kind of mark it, and watch it, happen. It's neat.
Well, yeah. And, something that I've noticed in my years of coming to your all shows is, I used to be the guy that was, I'm standing up no matter what. I don't care if anybody else is sitting down. I'm standing up, I'm singing along to all the songs. What I've noticed over the past 3 years is everybody else is singing along as well.
Right.
So
exactly.
And I think that's so awesome, because if you sit down and listen to the music, it's just gonna, it's going to speak to you if you listen to the lyrical content that Jason writes. It's
right.
It's not just brainless pop music, and I'm not taking away from anybody else. If you want to write brainless pop music, that's great. But
right, for
some guys, they want, some content there, and Jason has that in spades,
I would say, yeah, it's super relatable content, and that's kind of the magic of it. And it's funny, talking about demographics again and people standing up and singing. It's funny because you can also pinpoint at what point somebody got on the train, So during a set, what I see, like out front, is a certain group of people who know every song, and they tend to be the portlier dudes with beards and the, baseball hats. And then you can kind of see some Southeastern people in there. You can see that's kind of where they picked up on it. And then you move over and you can see some, the next record, Something More Than Free, and it's funny to see the people who just got on board and Something More Than Free and Nashville Sound. It's funny to watch them the rest of the show, because, they've heard those songs, some of those songs. Maybe they've heard some of those songs. They don't know the words, but they're going to move their mouth like they know them, and it's kind of funny to watch. There's nowhere close to the right words. It's hilarious.
Right.
And I have to keep myself from cracking up. One thing, if I smile too big, my in-ears pop out. Yeah. But,
well,
but it's fun to watch.
It's, I mean, like I said, I caught a show in April, and I think you guys opened with Go It Alone, and I lost my mind. I was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 rows back, and, I lost my mind, and there were several people around me that, that was from an earlier record, and they were like, man, this guy must be a huge fan, but I love the old stuff. I love the new stuff. It's just, it's just such good music. And the live show is, it's a dumb question, but I already know the answer, but I will ask it straight from you and get it from the horse's mouth. You guys are 100% live. There's no tracks, none of that stuff. And I've said that a billion times to people. It's going to sound like the record. I mean, they're that good, so I'm sure you've seen other bands that augment their sound with tracks and stuff like that. You guys are
right.
100% live off the cuff, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Yeah. So doing it the right way, kids, doing it the right way.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. I mean, in certain genres, that's understandable, but, you don't want to go out like that, man.
No. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't. And so, I mean, I just think that your all show is, you guys are so tight, and just the rhythm section. I mean, you and Jimbo are just a force to be reckoned with. And I don't know if there's something in the water down there around Muscle Shoals or what it is, but
that's what they say.
I have yet to see a drummer and a bass player from that area that wasn't just, stuck like glue on each other and just awesome. I mean, it's good stuff.
He, I don't know what I'd do without him. He is, we work very well together, and, we love each other, and we support each other. And I told Jimbo when I joined the band, I was like, what this town needs, again, talking about Muscle Shoals, I was like, they need another, not that you can duplicate in any form or fashion what Roger Hawkins and David Hood have done. It's like, but we need to kind of seek to become that duo, and try to work as much as possible in the studio. And, the years of playing live together is only going to make that just stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like we're succeeding to a certain extent, and like I say, there's no way you could possibly replicate what David and Roger have done. But, just to have, consider ourselves a team, whether we're with Jason or not,
Yeah.
So.
Well, you guys are succeeding, no doubt about it. Chad, I want to be very respectful of your time. We're coming to the end of our interview. Unfortunately, I could talk to you all night, but
we can do it again.
Absolutely. Sometime. And it's an open invitation here, man, for an old buddy like you. Anytime you've got the time to come on the Drum Shuffle, you're welcome here. It goes awesome. Without saying. But one of the things that we always do is we ask our guests for a good piece of advice. And I know that you've probably got some good advice to give to other drummers, other musicians. Tell us something that we can apply to our lives that you've learned over your amazing career. Man, my thing is just persistence, I think, is the key. So I played for a lot of years, toured a lot before I was with this band, and then kind of got burnt out, or just not burnt out, but discouraged. And so I took a year off after my daughter was born, or a year or two after my daughter was born. I took a year off, and I sold ads for a freaking phone book. And I was the worst salesman ever. I think to actually consider myself a salesman, I would have had to actually have gone into these places of business to try to sell them ads. So I wouldn't even do that. I'd do as little as possible, get away with as little as possible. And, I became miserable in that. And
my wife was like, I don't want to get a divorce, so why don't you find somebody to play with, And so I quit my job. The very next day, Jason called me for that first, actually for the run that I was ultimately hired on. Didn't see that coming. I was just going to play it by ear, and thankfully that happened. And that's luck for sure. But persistence is it, because, if you give up, if this is what you want to do, then you got to put your heart and soul into it. Make it your life. You have to learn a balance if you have a family, for sure. But you just make it work in whatever way you can, because the other side for me was not pretty. That's it. Just keep at it, kids, or don't do it at all.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a tough call for a lot of people. I mean, when you have responsibilities, the mortgage, the car payment, all those things, it's hard to say to your wife, yeah, I'm going out on tour and I'm going to get paid $200 a week. I love you, honey. I'll see you in 7 months.
I begged for one more year. I can't tell you how many times I've begged for one more year for my wife. Just give me one more year. I feel like something's about to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you got to do to keep at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a tough conversation, but you know what? I'm glad that you've stuck with it, because you guys are putting out some amazing, amazing tunes. Have a great run over in Europe. I know that you guys are booked solid, all the way up through September of this year. One last question. I'm assuming a new record is coming sometime after you guys finish up this cycle. Any word, any scoop you can give us tonight?
I don't know about a new studio record, but there will be a live record shortly.
Awesome.
It's already been recorded and all that. So, it's in the process of getting, I think it just got mixed. The final mix was probably last week. And then that announcement will be coming shortly, and I probably shouldn't have just said that. But
well,
anyway.
Okay, let me ask this. Will you get fired for making that announcement on this show?
God, wouldn't that be the worst?
Man.
Yeah, probably so.
Well, okay, you tell me when I can publish the episode, Chad, and
I feel like an announcement is forthcoming, and it's kind of already out there. I mean, I've seen rumblings of it. So yeah, I just don't know when. That's the honest truth. I don't know when it's coming out, but I would say probably in the next 5 to 6 months for sure.
Cool. Well, we will definitely look forward to that. Again, brother, thank you so much for taking time while you have, just a couple of weeks off between runs out there. I really appreciate you taking time to do this. And again,
yes, sir. This was fun.
Yeah, you're welcome here anytime, brother. You guys be safe over in Europe, and we will talk to you very, very soon.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you, Chad. Talk to you soon, buddy.
All right.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for episode 20 of the Drum Shuffle. My thanks again to Chad Gamble for taking an hour out of his vacation, quite honestly, to come on the show. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you go out there and check out Jason Isbell and the 400 unit. They're going to be in Europe for a couple of weeks, but they are on the road here in the States pretty much up until the first part of October. Just a great show. I can't say that enough. Go check them out when they come to a city near you. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button on whatever service you're using to listen in today. As always, we have great guests coming up. Next week, I'm going to be joined by the fantastic Jeff Williams. Jeff has just been an icon on the jazz scene for quite a number of years. Just going to have a great conversation with him. So you're going to want to tune in for that show for sure. You don't want to miss some of the other folks we have coming up on the show over the next few weeks. I want to thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart for tuning in. We can't do any of this this without any of you. And as always, keep your emails coming to us. We love hearing from you throughout the week. The drumshufflepodcast@gmail.com is our email address. Our web address is thedrumshuffle.com, and you can find more information on me over at jamieeads.com. As always, until next time, may your heads stay strong and your sticks never break. Cheers, everybody.